The town of Berlin. Country charm at the center of Connecticut.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We'll start our town council meeting now. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Room. Okay. Roll call. Thanks.
Councilman Carol Costa. Present. Council Gianoni.
Here.
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 Council Pagliaro. Here. Council Russell.
Here.
Mary Hurtline.
All right, thank you, Kate. Okay, we now have our audience of citizens. If anyone wishes to speak on any topic, now is your time. We do have one signed in. Richard Benson is signed in, so he's number one on the list. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
How are you?
Nice to be number one.
Yeah, there you go. See, you're number one here.
Nice
Number
to
one
see
in our
some,
book, all
so
right?
many familiar faces and friends. Mr. Mayor, members of the Town Council, good evening. Dick Benson, 360 Savage Hill Road. 2 quick points, if I may. First, the McGee School Resource Officer issue. I'm a grandparent of a middle schooler, and I would like that officer on duty every day that school is in session. The resource officer plays an important role in the McGee educational structure. Contrary to what you may have heard, he is wanted and he is needed. So I hope that the resources can be found to bring him back full-time. Point number 2, the McGee School threat incident of February 23rd. Thankfully, that was a benign threat, but I have little information personally about what happened that day, but I do know this. Children were frightened, parents were frantic, some parents had no notification, phone lines were busy, and some kids were whisked away from school. So I think we should take the opportunity to have a action or a post-action review committee, after-action report, if you will, for the purpose of seeing what improvements might be made to our town's emergency policies and procedures. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Question?
No, actually, you are very apropos. You're right on in perfect timing, because tonight we have a one of our agenda items, just so you know, is to talk about a school security forum that we'll be conducting in the near future, and we're going to talk about things like this and make sure we've covered all our bases. So we hear you, and we are going to work on it.
Well, the police and fire service does this all the time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think something that they could help monitor or facilitate would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the input. Okay, anyone else? Yes, sir. Mr. O'Brien.
John O'Brien, Vineyard Drive, well said. Because I came in, I seen basically the topic, acting town managers, basically is going to work with Board of Education scheduling school security. Kind of basically got to me, because how much is a child's life worth? You have kids going to school. Amy has kids going to school. Priceless. You can't put a dollar amount on a child's life. You know, when I come here and I hear more about our criminals, they need new cells at a figure roughly around $300,000, and we take an officer out of one of our schools. Shame on you. And it's the police commission. It's not John Collette. The police commission voted. I would like to introduce, basically, hand it over to the Board of Education. They do a fine job. They make sure our students are safe all the time. Maybe this Board of Education should be handling it, not our police commission. Again, the children come first. Our cells come last. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And, you know, again, point well taken, and we are, you know, that's why we have, you know, we're gonna be looking at this issue in the very, very near future, and we'll talk about it a little bit tonight, too, so. Anybody else from the audience? Yes, sir. Richard.
Richard Paskowitz, Elwood Road. A question for the mayor. Do residents of our community have the right to come and stand here during audience of citizens and make statements about the search for the new town manager?
You can come here and make any statements you want as long as they're made in a professional manner, yes.
Thank you. Please remember that.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure what it's based on, but that's okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Sam Lamaglio, 78 Hickory Hill Road, Berlin. I come here not as a Board of Finance member, but as a citizen of Berlin. It's been approximately 13 months that Berlin has not had a town manager. We've used almost every word in the dictionary to describe temporary. This should not be a Democratic Republican issue, but a Berlin issue. The fact is the town of Berlin needs a permanent town manager. A town manager shows stability in a vibrant community. Newcomers to our town waiting to start a business or buying a home or register their children to schools need to know that there's someone running the town day-to-day operations. Also, a town manager is a spokesman for the town who tries to encourage development in the town. Don't let a party chair nationalize Berlin politics. Put aside political differences. Work together, hire a town manager, put Berlin first, and don't forget about Berlin pride. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a town manager. He's been in place for a year. I understand he's acting, but he's doing a fine job, and we are in this middle of a search, and it's on our agenda tonight in executive session to bring our new council members up to speed. We have a couple candidates that are still open, so that we have not decided on yet. So we are working on this, and we're trying to, we're doing the best we can, and I think up to this point we've, you know, in the beginning, when we appointed Mr. Healy, we had a plan to go forward with interviews, which we did. Again, repeated this many times. And we're continuing with the plan, and we will ultimately come to hiring a town manager. And we will do that as fast as we can, but recognizing it's a very important position in our town. It's the CEO of our town, and certainly all the members of the last council, we're in a new council now, we'll get it done, felt that we needed to take our time and do the right thing, and that's what we're going to do, and we will finish the job with this council. So appreciate the input. We are working on it. Thank you. Any other? Yes, sir.
Frederick Morley, 27 Grove Street, East Berlin. I just want to say to Mayor Mark and, you know, to the members who were on the old council, how the town manager search was done was absolutely disgraceful. We had a great town manager. Denise was fired. I don't know her personally, but Denise was fired. Now we've had an acting town manager, which has broken the charter. I've reviewed the charter. I've had lawyers look at the charter. It's been a violation of the charter. It's absolutely disgusting. And you've cost us more in taxpayer dollars just for what you did to Denise. And I'm just appalled. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. You know, just as far as taxpayer dollars, we've actually spent less than having a town manager because they have an acting town manager. So that is incorrect. If you look at the budget figures, we've actually saved a lot of money, and I will have our town attorney, because we do have some questions about the charter, But we have followed legal advice the whole way. And we do have a corporation counsel that advises us on that, so we'll talk about that maybe in the
Sure we will.
counselor communications. Okay, anyone else? We're on a roll, come on. Hearing no one else, I will close the audience of citizens. Appreciate all your comments, and hopefully, whether in this town council meeting or the next few, they will all be addressed and are being addressed as we speak. Okay, moving on to our consent agenda. We've all read the consent items. Take a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the 4 items in the consent agenda tonight.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Item number 1, new business.
Under new business is the town manager's budget submission document. This year, we changed a little bit of the format for the town budget submission. Kevin Delaney has taken a lot of time and put together it's a document, other than just getting you a spreadsheet. This year, he's gone through and described how the budget's put together, what each department spends, what it gets spent on, and I think he's put together a very good document, which is honestly, it looks like a lot of other towns now. We have a document that's similar to many other towns, which describes the budget as a living document. You can look through it and understand why we spend the money we do and where we spend it. So I asked Kevin to come tonight and just give you a brief overview. I believe that each of you either got an electronic or a written version of it. And it's 100-something pages, so hopefully you had a good weekend reading. But anyway, Kevin's here to describe it.
That was pretty good. Good evening. As Jack said, we changed up the document, excuse me, this year, in part in response to feedback we got from S&P during the analyst call. What we were preparing was a spreadsheet. And having gone through my first budget hearing here in Berlin last year, there were several people in the auditorium who held up the spreadsheet. But what that doesn't tell you is anything of the numbers, what's behind the numbers, what's involved there. So the document that we have this year is a step forward. It's not the final step, but it is a step forward to create something that not only citizens in town, but rating agencies, those who contemplate giving us grants, those who evaluate the bond money that they have given us, have an opportunity to understand the community. One of the things that rating agencies always tell communities is they evaluate you not just on your debt level or various one individual aspect, but they look at how you respond to different circumstances, how you're managing your money, and essentially what is your strategy. Because if they're going to give you money for 10, 15, 20 years to pay back, they want to understand the strategy, just like any other enterprise would have. You may have a good year or a bad year, but what's the overarching approach? And that's what this was intended to do. I just want to draw your attention to a couple of things. Don't want to get into the numbers, but on page 4, that is designed to be a summary of the budget. For those who have been on the council before, the Board of Finance had the pleasure of receiving the extremely large, very detailed binders this year. This is designed to give you a much higher level view of the money. The items that are highlighted in yellow, those are the items that essentially will be voted on by the citizens. The total town budget, the total Board of Ed budget. For anybody who doesn't have this, it is available electronically on the town website as well. And then down below that is a little different view of how we put it together. There are a number of items within the town budget that really are actually supportive of the school system. And so it takes the budget, while we may be voting on the town and the Board of Ed the way it's constructed, the actual effect of where those dollars go, you can see is actually dramatically different. You know, in the first part where we'll be voting, it's almost an even split. But when you look at where the dollars are applied, it's about a 60-40 split. The other thing I'll draw your attention to is, I think the
the letter from the town manager to the Board of Finance, because that really does try to articulate the strategy and the approach, and the logic behind it. And, you know, the overarching theme of what we're trying to do, I'd say, is on page 8. There's a grid of the kind of 4 main categories, but in the middle, I think the key word is sustainable. There's been a lot of borrowing. We've got significant short-term pension challenges. Certainly the state challenges are pervasive across every community. And so the objective of what we're trying to do here and what we're trying to do longer term is to create a sustainable organization, a sustainable community. The tax base is consistent and needs are being met. So that's kind of the overarching objective here. And then finally, the last thing I'll just draw your attention to is on page 18. Many similar communities, I think one of the key things is also to benchmark the town against other communities. It's not to say we're better or worse, but to say where do we fall. We talk a lot about debt. One thing I'll draw your attention to is the third column from the right, where you have the bonds on a per capita basis. As you go down that list, you know, you look at the per capita bonding for this community as compared to the state, as compared to all other similar communities, communities I think we should be benchmarking ourselves against. Berlin is certainly competitive with any of the communities in Hartford County that are listed here, but when you look at the debt structure, it places, that leverage places a significant amount of pressure on the budget every year. So again, it comes back to the sustainable element. Don't want to get into the budget proposal itself. The Board of Finance has this, held their first meeting last night to look at revenue, Board of Ed, long-term debt. The next meeting is now going to be Thursday night due to the weather, downstairs in the Board of Ed conference room, and that's where town operations and capital will be discussed. Those are obviously 2 big pieces as you look at the page 4 numbers. And then I believe it's firmed up that the council has been invited to meet up with the Board of Finance as per the charter next Monday night during the meeting to have an opportunity to talk about your priorities for the community. Hopefully I'm not talking out of turn.
No, is that, I wasn't aware that date, because I know the chair of the Board of Finance didn't agree to that date. I don't know if he does. Sam, you're here tonight. Do we agree to that date? Perfect date, good. That wasn't what you said the other night, but now we're on. That's good. I'm glad to hear it.
So that'll be a good opportunity to talk. You know, as we go through the budget process, we do talk about the bond plan every year, and that bond plan could be 0. That bond plan could be items. We do have items we want to propose, and per the charter, both the council and the Board of Finance have to approve any bonding, and I think that's a great venue for us to be able to talk about the bond plan that we have and why we think bonding for those items are appropriate. There may be other items that you see in the operating budget that you believe or that the Board of Finance believes should be better handled through bonding, or items that are bonded that shouldn't be, and hopefully that's the opportunity we have. We have a tight time to be able to bring something forward to the annual budget hearing, so these next couple of meetings will be critical in the Board of Finance developing the budget to bring forward to the community. I guess with that, I'll stop. It was just an overview of the document, so. Yes.
Is the dashboard dead?
No.
Oh, okay.
Dashboard is out there. I've actually, there's a couple of updates already on there.
Okay.
And we will continue that.
You want to kill it?
All right.
As a memorial
You
to
can stop it if you want. I'm happy not to do the work.
To our last,
Yeah.
last council. Come
For
on.
everyone's benefit, we got a dashboard almost hourly as our whim changed that showed the numbers, and it really is a good measure. However, we killed a lot of trees.
We did.
Thank you. We made more dashboards than Ford Motor
I was
Company.
going to say, you called me Henry Ford last year.
We're well informed, though, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know if there's any other questions or not.
Okay. I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
All right, on to number 2.
Agenda item number 2 is school security. I think it's doesn't need to be said, but there's been a lot of discussion about school security. I know, Mayor, that you asked to have this placed on the agenda. Originally, we were going to ask both the police chief and the superintendent of schools. Unfortunately, there's a lot of conflicts with schedule, so Brian couldn't make it tonight. But when I spoke to him, he said the Board of Education would like to have a joint forum to discuss school security, and they're looking for the town council to agree and maybe provide some dates and see if we can coordinate that. I did get. John Klett did come tonight, and John was going to prepare just a couple of statements about school security and what the police are doing in generalities. But at the end, I would ask that if you would move to authorize the acting town manager to work with the Board of Education to schedule a forum.
Yeah. Make a motion on that.
Sure. Move to authorize the acting town manager to work with the Board of Education on scheduling a school security forum.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just want to say, you know, I'm in the construction business. I see a lot of bids. I see a lot of this going out right now. There's a lot of ad alternates to bids. A lot of schools are looking at this, you know, reviewing all their security. You see things like security film, you know, ballistic door frames, ballistic windows. I've been in schools where they have metal detectors. I mean, it'd be good to talk about all these things. You know, are we doing enough? I know we've had some expenditures for, you know, security upgrades in the vestibules. So it would be a good idea for everybody to talk and throw everything out on the table and see what we can do.
Yes.
Just if I could, I think a forum is a great idea, but the one thing that I want to caution you against is having discussions in public about specific operational or school infrastructure plans that you have. If you talk to any security consultant, they'll tell you that the number one thing you have going for you, regardless of what you implement, is that the bad guys don't know what you have. So a lot of towns around the state, including the town that I sit on a Board of Ed in, and other towns that I represent, are going through the same discussions right now, because parents want to know if their children are safe, and I completely understand that. But we do have certain laws in the state of Connecticut. When Public Act 13-3 was passed in the wake of Sandy Hook, there was a lot of focus on security infrastructure upgrades, and the state has had a grant program over the last 5 years that's paid about $50 million in grant monies. But that was only part of Public Act 13-3. The other part of Public Act 13-3 was to require every school, not just school district, but every individual school to have a safety and security committee. For that safety and security committee to be comprised of certain individuals, including fire and police emergency personnel from each town. And for that safety and security committee to act as a clearinghouse for a school-by-school operational plan that has to get filed with the State of Connecticut Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security each year. So there are very significant changes in the law in Connecticut as a result of Public Act 13-3. So I'm not suggesting that you simply tell people we're complying with the law, that's all we can tell you. Discussions are fine, but I would just discourage you from having any specific discussions that reveal any plans or any specific security measures that are ready or in place. That's just my 2 cents on it from doing this in 12 different towns. Okay?
Yeah, I appreciate that's good advice, and Chief and I already had that brief discussion that we certainly wouldn't want to, you know, broadcast to anybody what everything it is that we do, but I think at least the forum could be a general, you know, more form of general discussion, and at least to maybe put our parents and all of us in town a little more at ease to know what, you know, what has been done in general to protect our schools and our town. So, but yeah, good advice. We all know. In law enforcement, we don't like to broadcast everything we do because we don't want them to know exactly what precautions we've had. So, very good advice.
I'm
Yes.
curious, will this forum also include either training or protocols for our kids and teachers in an emergency situation?
Well, I mean, I guess the forum, we can start just with a public discussion. We'll have to talk to the Board of Ed and see what really, I'll kind of leave it up to them with our input, what they want to do, and certainly up to the chief as well, and we can hear from him briefly tonight since he's here. But yeah, we'll, as we informally try and put this together, we'll see what we need to talk about. I mean, I would assume, I don't want to assume anything, but I would assume our schools have training with the students on what to do, you know, in a circumstance, right? I mean, I'm assuming
Yeah,
I assume they're
I
doing
expect to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But,
that. Have to find, that's what we need to, that's kind of what the forum is about, to find out what we've done, what we've prepared for, and what else we may need to do, yeah. So we have, the motion's on the floor, right?
I think it's a second.
We had a second, right? Yeah. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved. But, Chief, could you just come up just for a minute or two? I know we'll save most of this for the forum, but let's just hear a few things, just so we can be at ease for the moment.
I'll give you a few things. I know we're going to have the forum. We have a commission meeting down the road to talk about Mr. Benson's concerns, and I share those concerns as well, so I don't think that the decision to pull that SRO was lightly. And he's only out of there temporarily. I'm short personnel at the moment, so that's the primary reason for that. But there is every intention of getting him back in there. Just to give you an idea, an overview, and we don't want to get into specific, obviously, because we don't want to give away our tactical plans. And 13-3, I know the schools, we worked on their all hazards plan. I was on a committee. I know that each school has a committee, as the town attorney mentioned. I know I'm in close contact with the superintendent. You know, we talk about just about everything. In fact, he mentioned this to me. In fact, I spoke to the Parent Advisory Council the other morning and gave them an overview of what we were doing. And they seem to be satisfied. I mean, I'm trying to fill them in on how, you know, I have limited resources to do some of this stuff, but we're doing the best we can with what we have. I can tell you that all of our officers are trained in active shooter, how to respond to it. They're equipped for it. They train in service every year, and we've the last 2 years we've used the schools. We've got another one coming up, so we'll go in. We've done McGee and the high school and gone through there. We're equipped with rifles, ballistic helmets, body armor. Each of the supervised vehicles has entry tools in the event that we can't get into the school. We have to force entry, so it's available, and they're trained in how to use that. You know, all of us regionally, we train together. So when we go in fact, the Budweiser incident was a good example. The first team that went in there was comprised of cops from 3 different towns, and they all trained together. They all had the same tactics, so that seems to work. We have a very detailed emergency response plan for every school, which involves multidisciplines, not just the police. It's fire, ambulance, and other assets that the town has to help us mitigate that as much as possible, God forbid. We do an incident command exercise at least once a year. So, you know, we're talking about incident command. And the fire department, you know, they're the gurus of that. You know, they get there and they tell you who's in command. We know because you know, I show up, they know who's in command. I don't have to say it, but they're very good at doing that. We have a regional mutual aid plan for law enforcement. There's a bigger one, but there's also one called the Blue Plan. It's multi-tiered, so if we get on there, I can get at least 10 additional officers with each tier. And then a major incident like that, we'd be getting the state police as well to get in there and help us out. So that's been tested. Actually, it's been used, not tested. So we know that works. We have interoperability and communications. So responding units can talk to us on a regional channel, and then once we get there, we can get them onto our channel. We're also able to get onto the state police channel with our new radios, which will be up very shortly. They're in now. We just got to get the digital piece going, but they're almost ready to roll. Let's see here. We do have officers assigned to each of the school safety committees. That was also mentioned by the town attorney. Typically, they're the DARE officer for that school. They are the SROs in the schools, in the 2 schools that have those. We assist the schools. They do the lockdown drills. They're required to do that also by that statute, and we are there to assist them. They have to tell us, you know, they call us and tell us when they're going to do it. We're there to make sure and monitor and assist them in doing that correctly. Every day, and I don't know if a lot of people realize this, but our officers go to those schools at least twice a day as a rule, and they'll be in there. They get out, they walk through the school. It's done randomly. I mean, I don't have the assets to put somebody at every school, but we try to make our presence there as omnipresent as possible, which gives, it's random. Okay, so nobody could look at it and say, okay, at 9 o'clock the guy's going to be there. We're there, you know, it varies. We teach DARE in all the elementary schools, including the private and parochial schools. So, you know, we're out there and we're in each of these schools. We have the copies of all their emergency plans as well. Our plan is available to every officer on his, in his cruiser. So we have floor plans for all the schools. So we, you know, and the elementary schools are a little laid out a little easier than the high school, obviously. But we do have floor plans for all those schools immediately available to the officers that are responding. We fund the SRO, and it's on the police budget. We cover both of those SROs are on the police. So we have the full-time one at the high school. Who obviously there's a more significant need there because the kids are older and there's more going on there. But we do all these as part of that statute he was talking about. There's also security assessments that have to be done biannually in each school. We have officers trained to do that, and we do that for the board so that they can submit their information to the state as required by that statute. Let's see. And finally, our dispatchers are also trained in how to handle that, because that's the kind of thing, if God forbid it did happen, it would blow up our switchboard. But they are also trained how to deal with that. So we've tried to get as much training in here as possible, and we try to get into the schools as often as we can. And I guess we'll talk more about that in the forum. And we did do a forum after that Sandy Hook. There was a forum at the high school, 13, I guess, 2013 or 14, whatever. But because I was on it with Dave Irwin and some other people. Questions that I can answer?
No, I don't know. Do we have any questions?
I have one question. Do we have, in our town, for lack of a better name, a reverse 911, so if there's something going on in town?
It's called Everbridge. The town has it,
Everbridge?
and the police do too. Yeah, the emergency management runs that for the town, but yes.
Do people have to sign up for it, or is it automatic to the
No, they have to, I think they can hit whole blocks of numbers, but if you want the routine emergency numbers, you have to sign up for that. But they can go out and pick a whole block and hit that.
Okay.
And actually pick it on a map, and it goes to every landline. But if you've got a cell phone, you'd have to sign up for that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So, more of a comment as opposed to a question. Very impressive. I think that, in my opinion, I'd like to be able to give you all that you need to make sure that you get the job done. And I know right now it's a temporary reallocation of your officers. I'm looking forward to the forum where we could discuss whether it be more allocation of funds to your department for more SROs, or with the enactment of the statute where retired police officers can become armed security guards, and we could use those and still have SROs that do the intermittent checks so they could teach DARE. And, you know, I think it would be great if and when a police officer from Berlin retires, you know, who better than to be acquainted with the town and the schools. So I think that's something, maybe an avenue we could look at. Not that that's definitely what we should do, but maybe something we could look at. And thank you for speaking to us today.
And to that comment, I agree with you, and I think that the board, that's something the board, because the board has to hire them. It's not that the police don't, but it's something that would be in their purview to do that.
Right.
And they can either do it armed or unarmed, but it really unarmed is, you know, in my opinion, it's not as effective.
Correct.
You know? Because I know Newington has a pretty good program, but they don't have an SRO in their either of their middle schools or their elementary schools. But they have security officers who go out to those schools during the day, but they're not police officers. But I was reading up on that statute today. Actually, that's not a bad. I mean, it's something to talk about in the forum because you'll have the board there.
Right. They're usually less of an hourly rate, but
right. Well, they're much cheaper too. Yeah.
Yeah. They're collecting pensions. They're trained, and
I know Newington uses retired corrections officers too.
Yeah.
So it could kind of give you a bigger pool.
Yeah, my uncle's runs that for the high school over there. He's in charge of the security because the board has a security supervisor. Basically, he runs all of their security. So a lot of those guys are retired corrections officers, police officers, and such.
Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate it, and you know, it was good to hear, and that's why I think the forum will be so important, just to get that information out to the town and to the parents. I mean, I have you know, heard that a lot of these incidents, and unfortunately, have been a people or procedure failure. You know, there's been, you know, issues in different shootings in different places, and it sounds like our procedures are well in place and you train for them and, you know, but
We review our plan every year. It gets reviewed, and you know, and it's not just the schools. This is not just as a tangent a little bit here. We go through all the churches during their services too. In fact, St. Paul's, and I sat down with Father Robert because they were concerned after the shooting in Texas. So we stop in there too, and you know, we helped him out with the run, hide, fight because I put something out to the parish in conjunction with him, because at his request. So we're not just involved in, you know, we do the business community. We had a forum for them where if they wanted to come to a class, we'd show them or give them the information on run, hide, fight, or how to handle active shooter. So
that's great. I mean, obviously, our schools are very, very important to us, but our whole town, the security of our whole town is important, and we appreciate that. And hopefully we can answer some more questions and get some more input from our residents with that forum and tweak some things and make it better. Thanks, Chief. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So if we could, I know it's busy, I know it's budget season, but as quickly as we can, get some dates. We'll come up with some dates here.
Yeah, I'll send an email out to each one of you, and if you could respond, let me know what your available dates are, and I can share those with Brian and the Board of Education. We can see where we go.
All right, we'll talk. We'll talk at the end of the meeting, figure out some dates, and while we're all here,
Okay.
hopefully get those to him. Thanks.
Agenda item number 3 is personal property audits. Joe Ferraro is here from the Tax Assessor's Office to request that the Tax Management Associates perform personal property audits on contingency. And he has a discussion about a 3-year program for completing 325 audits per year for the next 3 years. So Joe is here to discuss the proposal.
Welcome, Joe.
Thank you. Personal property is a self-reporting property tax. Audits are done to discover or remove. We've done audits in the past that we actually removed items that shouldn't have been declared, so it's a double-edged sword. The company that approached us, they have done, I've made a list of the towns that they've done. It's been a positive outcome. The company works strictly on contingency. They come in, they do audits, they're CPAs. They will fly, if a corporation is out Midwest, they'll go out there and look at all the books and do a complete listing, and then meet with them after, iron out any issues, and then bring the results back to the assessor. One of the things what I thought was more positive in this is the town does not pay anything until the town receives over the tax from the taxpayer that we're under declaring. And then the company gets paid at that time. Until then, they get no compensation whatsoever. And that's why I said, well, you know, that's not bad. The town has got issues. Unfortunately, we have to, it's property tax that the town runs on most of it. And it's a good avenue to look at and proceed.
Have we not done this?
We did audits a few, probably, I've been here for a long time, probably 4 or 5 years ago. We were doing them on a fee base.
Oh, okay.
And this company actually looks at $100,000 companies of personal property and up. They don't look at the $4,000 or $6,000 assets for small businesses. An example, the auditors that did ours in the past, they would get like $500 an audit or $350 per audit. So they would do 7 per year because we had to pay for it. And sometimes you made money or sometimes you were in the red. One of the things I thought was positive on this, if they go in and there's no increase, they don't get paid. They only get it if they discover that it is underdeclared.
Joe, is 30% the kind of standard for these services?
Well, because of the exposure, they don't, because it's a contingency and they only get paid when the town gets paid. That's why that is higher than normal. You can go to the fee basis where you would pay $1,500 per audit,
right?
And then you pay that up front.
Okay, yeah. Well, my question was just, I'm sure that other firms do perform these services on a contingency basis as well. So I'm just wondering if 30% is like the standard.
Yeah, it was not unreasonable.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What's their reputation? I mean, they work on contingency. Are they going to be overly aggressive, or are they fair and reasonable, would you say?
Fair and reasonable. There's another company out there that does contingency, but they're very aggressive. This company, for the towns that I called, Rocky Hill, Danbury, New Britain, they were very satisfied with the outcome. No issues. They said that the citizens said they were very courteous, polite. They're professionals. I'm also requesting that all the records, I also get a copy so I can also review, because at the end, I'm still responsible. I think it's a good avenue, mostly because we're not paying out front. And that's why I looked at this and said, that's not bad for the town, because we're not coming up with any dollar amount.
No, and their ROI is really good.
Yes.
Now, what do these companies just forget that they have these machines, or?
I'm going to be politically correct.
Yeah, that's why I said forget, yeah.
No one likes to pay taxes.
Right.
So, unfortunately, everything's not put into the declaration. And that's the purpose of audits. They're supposed to actually mirror your tax returns, is what the declaration is. So we tie that in, and probably about 5 or 6 years ago, the law actually changed, and they cleaned up the language where you're not even supposed to transpose a number in your declaration. What's appeared in your books is supposed to be what's on your declaration. Some things that happen is the fiscal year versus the assessment year. Give you an example. Someone buys a piece of equipment for $100,000 and they bought it September 30th, but they declare it on the following year, and where it should have been reported the year before, because it was October 1 is our assessment date. So that's another thing that we look for. Construction in progress. There's a fine line on what's real estate and what's personal property, and until you know what the construction's doing, you can't separate what should be personal property or what should be realty. And these are the advantages of doing the audits.
I mean, I'm glad to hear that they're sensitive to, obviously, these are going to be businesses they're going to, and we certainly want to maintain our reputation of being business-friendly here in Berlin. We worked hard to get there the last couple years. We want to maintain that, so I'm glad to hear that. And I was reading in here their public relations program is important to them, and they treat everybody, it sounds like, with respect and do their job professionally. So
That's when I called, that's what I asked. How the citizens or taxpayers get ticked, and they said not at all. They didn't get any complaints whatsoever. They did the process, and
that's good. That's good to hear. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for Joe? No. Okay. Thank you, Joe. We'll take a motion.
Okay, move to authorize Jack Healy, the acting town manager, to sign the agreement with the Tax Management Associates, Inc., to perform the personal property audit 3 years.
Second.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Agenda item number 4 is an information on the Connecticut Main Street Center. Their mission is to be a catalyst that ignites Connecticut Main Streets. There's been an application to the Greater New Britain Foundation for Public Giving for a grant to provide Berlin with a half-time person to assist us with the creation of a Main Street program. Chris Edge is here to describe the program and the benefits.
Thank you, Jack. Yes, the opportunity had come about. I've been speaking with the Connecticut Main Street program in Hartford. It's actually founded and funded by Eversource. Essentially, they work with a number of Main Street programs, a couple communities around us, Southington, Middletown, Wallingford, as well as communities a little further away, New London and Simsbury. Essentially helps communities to get folks to work closer together. I had put in there the 4 different pillars they have. Again, the Main Street Foundation is the one that actually had gone through, the Main Street program to the foundation itself. would support the work that we're doing, particularly on Farmington Avenue. Looking at the area from New Britain Road, likely to the corner of Porter's Pass. Again, it may potentially go further, but that's the area we're targeting. Essentially would work with business owners as well as property owners, combine marketing, other things at this point. Right now, it is a competitive process. It's more of letting you know what's happening with it. If we do move further, we'll be back in touch with you. But the good thing, too, it can really help us do some more on-the-ground things and really bring a lot more to the businesses and help them to work together. Right now, pretty much every business in town has very limited resources for doing things, and the Main Street program really helps to do coordinated marketing, events, and the like, and really help build off of what we've been doing the last couple of years and really take it down to Farmington Avenue and help use our resources as best as possible. And if we can get the grant from the foundation, it's using somebody else's money to do so.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks. Questions for Chris? No? I guess we have no. We don't need any action on this, Chris, right?
No, it's just informational.
Excellent. Thank you.
Great.
Chris.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Agenda item number 5. Yeah, Chris, you might as well stay there.
Not moving.
John Zook and Mark Bayram at the golf course have been working with Chris Edge. We're looking for different ways to increase revenue and get more activity at the golf course. They came up with a good plan where they're going to seek sponsorships for each of the holes. The sponsor there would be a sign there for the sponsor. In exchange, there would be a certain number of golf rounds exchanged to the sponsor. Chris and John are here to describe the program and the benefits for the sponsor and to the golf course.
Thank you. Yes, we had been speaking for some time, Mark, John, and myself, and we had looked at the golf course, especially with right now the situation with finances and the fact that there's not a lot to go on, as we all know. The golf course is a beautiful place, needs upkeep, and in our discussions had looked at ways to potentially bring in additional revenue into their capital improvement account. Talking through a couple different companies as well, sponsorship seemed to make a lot of sense. There's a couple reasoning why for it. One, tee signs. Right now, if you go on our golf course, we don't have tee signs that many other courses have. In your packet, you'll see kind of a mock-up of what it is. It would show the course, the layout, yardage, and then right below that would be the sponsor sign for each of the companies. The good thing is we have about a half dozen companies expressed interest, and we haven't even gone beyond discussion phase, so we're excited about it. Additionally, I think having the private sector pay for it would be tremendous. The costs are largely in year 1, where a small amount will go into capital improvement. Year 2, once the program's going, and John can give you more particulars on the finances, but it'll get a continuous stream into the golf course, and essentially from years 2 on, all that will need to be replaced is the bottom sign, which I think is probably less than $100 a sign. Additionally, looking to promote local businesses. Having 18 holes, they have over 40,000 golfers a year, which will then see those signs. With the rounds of golf that the sponsors will be getting, we'll also be getting both companies and individuals who may have never played the course or sadly know the course is there. And the good thing, too, is this will give them the ability as well, Mark and John, as well as Remzi, to highlight the things they're doing there at the course. That's pretty much for me at this point. I'll bring John up to mention some of the dollars and cents to give you some background.
As Chris said, in year 1, most of the cost would be to purchase the signs. In year 2, we could be looking at upwards of around approximately $25,000 that would go into the capital improvement fund. That's kind of where we would be as far as year 2 would be concerned. And I think this would be a great program, again, what Chris said, as far as having the business owners pay for the actual signs of the golf course.
Thanks. Any questions? Yep.
I like the approach, trying to use sponsors and, bring in some money. I was just wondering if you thought about maybe more than 1 year. Maybe if there was a 2-year or 3-year commitment to somebody as an option.
We have not looked at it at this point. We were looking to come to the council first and foremost for approval at either the next or the following golf commission meeting. We're going to be discussing a number of things, including we've gotten a request if the golf rounds are not included, and I think we'll also bring that up as part of it. We had not looked at it at this point. Essentially, we were looking at kind of getting it up and rolling, but I think at this point, creativity is going to be the key factor.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Any questions?
Oh, great idea.
Very good, impressive.
We appreciate you being creative and bringing in revenue. You know how that will be helpful to the town and the golf course, so appreciate that. So no more questions, take a motion on this?
Okay, move to authorize Mark Bayram and the Golf Commission to offer 18 single-hole sponsorships for the 2018 golf season at a cost of $1,800 per hole.
Second on that?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all is in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Okay, agenda item number 6, John should stay here. Boy Scout Troop number 44 is requesting a donation of a round of golf for 4 and 2 carts as a raffle prize for their pasta dinner. They'll hold that on Saturday, March 17th. So we'll have a pasta dinner on St. Patrick's Day.
Hey.
Okay.
Huh.
Green sauce.
Interesting. Interesting approach.
Have green sauce, right?
It's different.
Meatball.
St. Patrick's Italian, right?
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Because I think we've done this before. in the
Yes,
past,
we have.
so.
So we'll take a motion.
Okay, move to approve a donation for a round of golf for 4 and 2 golf carts at Timberland Golf Course to be used as a raffle prize for the Boy Scouts Troop 44 of Berlin, Connecticut. Pasta supper to be held on Saturday, March 17th, 2018. The total value of the donation is $236.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 7 is for Jim Simons. It's a discussion about locking in the diesel contract for 2018-2019. Jim is here to explain the contract and the selection of the contract of the supplier that he would like to take.
Welcome, Jim.
Welcome. Every year we sign a contract with a vendor. Throughout the years, we've signed contracts with many different vendors. For the past 4.5 years, we've had one vendor, which is East River Energy, that has been very good to us. And what I mean by very good to us is they've been very accommodating to us. Deliveries are on time. Adding on other sites to the contract, midterm contract, were no problem. Things are very well. They were not our low bidder, though. Our low bidder was Dime Oil out of Waterbury. We had Dime Oil back probably, well, we'd say three suppliers, so probably 12 or more years ago. East River Energy lost that bid by a .0014, not even a penny. It comes out to about $60 on a 33,000 gallon yearly order. About $60. When I put this agenda item together and I reviewed it, I didn't think that for $60 it was worth breaking the bond or breaking the relationship with a very good vendor that has been good to the town. So that's why I asked you to remain with East River Energy and award the bid for 33,000 gallons of diesel to them. And I can tell you stories where they go above and beyond. Deliveries during the middle of snowstorms because they couldn't get out because they were doing other DPW garages. And we were on the list, but we just didn't get service in that afternoon before the snowstorm. Tanker pulls in at 6 o'clock at night during a snowstorm. You don't see tankers on the road during snowstorms, but they're there to supply you. Called up yesterday, just called up yesterday, said we have another significant storm coming in. I want to top the tanks off. We didn't meet the threshold volume for them to be there. Today at 9 o'clock this morning, the tanker was there filling our tanks up with no extra cost. They're just that type of business. When we order fuels, we order both gasoline and diesel to supply both the gasoline cars and the diesel, the bigger trucks. We're able to do that with one phone call, one tanker load. It just makes it so much easier, so much simpler. So what I'm asking you to do is I'm asking you to order to allow for the not the low bid, but the second low bid, and provide us with 33,000 gallons of diesel for next year.
If I can speak to that, as a person who used to have to manage that, it's if you have a good contractor, one who delivers things when you need it, it's very beneficial. And to change over our records, change over our purchasing, the fittings and everything that we have to do for $69, I couldn't recommend that. I would recommend to go with John. It's very beneficial, particularly on the operations side.
Okay, well, Mr. Simons, you've never steered us wrong that I know of, well, I've been here at least, so we certainly appreciate that information. Any questions for?
Just one, maybe Jeff can address it. Is there any legal responsibility by not taking the low bidder? No. I have no problem.
No, I mean, they're accommodating, they're reliable.
Yeah.
It's worth $60.
Yeah, no, they're gonna cost them more than $69 and heartache and extra work probably.
Okay, then let's have a motion.
Move to award the contract for the purchase of 33,000 gallons of diesel fuel for the 2018-2019 fiscal year to East River Energy, as it is in the best interest of the town.
Second.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further discussion?
Aye. No.
None? All those in
Aye,
favor?
sorry, I jumped the gun.
We're anxious to approve it, I understand. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
There you go.
So moved.
Agenda item number 8, Jim, stay up there, please. Without going into the background, I sent you all an email last week, and I do apologize for asking you for action that quickly. But as it said in the email, we had an opportunity to purchase a truck. We had one that it's on its legs. Jim called and he explained, as I did in the told you in the email, we had the opportunity on the state contract to purchase a truck at lower than any of the bid prices had come in. He'd gone out twice to get bid prices. We could have waited to this week, but that would have increased the cost $800 to the town and would have delayed the delivery of the truck. So I do appreciate you getting back to me and approve, with an email. And so this is our formal request for you to approve the acquisition of that truck.
Yeah, we'll take a motion, then we can discuss it.
Move to purchase one 2018 Ford F-250 4x4 from Crowley Ford, utilizing the State of Connecticut DAS bid number 17PSX0234 for an amount not to exceed $30,000.
Second on that?
Second.
Discussion. Questions for Jim? I know your truck basically fell apart, is that what I understand?
Well, it's
Done.
2000 truck.
Yeah.
It's 18 years old. How many people drive an 18-year-old truck? But primarily, the problem with the truck is rust and rot. Trucks swim in rust, swim in that salt, and it just eats them apart. When we went out the first time for bid, it was back in November. We didn't receive any bids from there, so we went out and solicited bids directly. One of the vendors got back to us, and that bid was overpriced. It was over our budget. And I actually just put it on the shelf and I just let it be as we were getting ready for winter and doing other things. When the truck broke down earlier this month, rotted out brake line, which is common with these things now. We put fuel lines in and I says, I got to start really looking for a truck for this guy. I opened up DAS contract. DAS contract awarded that contract on February 9th. And the funny thing, or not the funny thing, but the sad thing for the vendors is build-out dates, which is the last date that they build out that year vehicles, was on February 28th. So that doesn't give you, the municipality that needs to go through this process, a lot of time to purchase vehicles and to get your orders in. So that was why we kind of stepped forward with that, knowing that after February 28th, we would be looking at a 2019 vehicle. And we would be working with that price increase.
Well, we certainly need to have our fire marshal be able to respond, so that's pretty important. Any other questions, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Agenda item number 9 is request for waiving the bidding requirements for Northeast Labs to perform additional testing for compliance with the Connecticut Health Department requirements. This is for the Water Control Commission. Unfortunately, Ray Jerome is out ill, so he's not here tonight, so I'll be subbing. We requested approval earlier in the year for $9,500 to purchase those services. The health department has increased the amount of sampling we have to do on the municipal drinking water side, and based on that, Ray believes that the cost could actually rise up to as much as $15,000. So therefore, we're requesting the council to waive the bidding requirements. We don't want to change from Northeast Labs and allow us to increase the purchase order to $15,000 for this budget year that we're currently in.
Okay. Take a motion.
Okay, move to waive the bidding requirements for Northeast Laboratories to allow for payments up to $15,000 so that the Berlin Water Control Commission remains in compliance with water quality tests established by the Connecticut Department of Health, as this is in the best interest of the town.
Second on that?
Second.
Any discussion?
Jack, now this is money that's in the budget and it'll be zeroed out, right? So
Correct.
basically this is adding another $5,500 to spend.
In the Water Control Commission budget, yeah. We have the funds, it just, again, they're changing the amount of sampling we're having to do. Ray's been negotiating with them, trying to reduce the frequency, or modify the frequency. But the health department, and, I think there are good intentions behind it. It's just that you have to, weigh how much you do the sampling. So in order to be in compliance this year, Ray believes that it's gonna cost another up to another $5,500. It probably won't cost all of that, but he felt that was the amount he should request.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, hearing no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Agenda item number 10 is request for catch basin materials related for roadway repaving projects. This is something we request every year. We're asking to utilize the Connecticut DAS contract to purchase the concrete catch basins. We purchase those on an as-needed basis depending on the roads and the condition of the catch basins. One of the things that we do now, and you'll see this in our budget presentation shortly, is we're trying to do between 5 and 5.5 miles of roads every year. I think you've heard me since I've been here tell you, you need to do that to turn the road over every 20 years. When we don't simply just do a paving, we actually try to go in and check the catch basins and trees and everything. And so when we do a road, when we leave it, it's been ground, it's been paved, the catch basin's been changed out. So depending on the number of catch basins we need, it'll vary on the number that we purchase, but we only buy what we need for the road we're working on.
Motion on this?
Move to utilize the Connecticut DAS contract number 17 PSX 0009 to purchase the necessary concrete catch basin materials from either Cromwell Concrete Products of Cromwell, Connecticut, or United Concrete Products of Yalesville, Connecticut through December 31st, 2019.
Second on? Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Agenda item number 11 is for the award of the tree removal contract. Last year, the Public Works Department went out for a tree removal bid. I believe Distinctive Gardens and Tree Care of South Windsor was the low bid at $1,090 per day, or $147.50 per hour. We requested a 2-year bid. We requested approval last year for a 1-year purchase, so we're requesting now for the second year of the 2-year bid, and that would be good through January 31st of 2019. We have, with that contract, we have also extended that so other departments besides Public Works is using it. I know John Zooks used the same company out at the golf course now, using the town rate.
Okay, motion on that?
Move to award contract number 2017-15 for tree removal services to Distinctive Gardens and Tree Care of South Windsor at the rate of $1,090 per day and $147.50 per hour through January 31st, 2019. Funding will come from established line item counts within the fiscal years 2017-18 and 2018-19 department budgets through established unit prices.
Second on that?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Agenda item number 12 is to purchase Exchange Online 365 program using the Capital Region Council of Governments request for proposal. The services are related to the expansion of the Connecticut Nutmeg network and the needs of the CROG to deliver cooperative services to municipalities. This is part of our business continuity plan. I think over the last couple months, Kate and I have been discussing with you how we've worked on the business continuity. In order to do some of the work that we want to do as far as changing our computer systems, more security and things, we need to upgrade our computer software. It's been advisable to go to the Online 365, and I think Kate probably may have a little more information, maybe not. If not, I just scared her.
Not much. You did great. The features that it is part of our business continuity plan, as Jack said. The features are within the body of your summary. The major thing is this is cloud-based, and that's what we need, because as we go to the cloud, we can start getting rid of some of the servers. And also this will eliminate the server and the support that we pay. So it's a win-win. It really is huge.
Great. Take a motion.
Move to utilize the,
I have one question.
okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I remember you saying that there's a significant amount of paper documents that we still have, some in storage, and has there ever been any thought given about scanning these documents in and getting them, in the cloud and that way?
Yes, and it's a different item, but what we have is, back in 2003, when I first started, we purchased software called Laserfiche. And the Laserfiche has been used to scan all of our minutes for every board and commission. A lot of the boards and commissions go back to the 1940s, and then also all of our contracts. So we have tried hard to, in my office, to use it as much as we can. We are starting to promote it with the other departments to try to get them into it. The finance department has used some of it, and we have talked to planning and zoning. Jack's been very supportive of it. The problem is the time to find to scan. But as you know, because you're in the legal background, is that you have to start someplace.
Right.
So the idea is and we're starting to get more buy-in with all of these things as we look at to revamp our website. That was the other thing. Jack was very big about, we have a steering committee, and it was made up of all the department heads. So now, all of a sudden, all the department heads are on board with revamping the website.
Okay.
Well then, in revamping the website, we want to make more information available for 24/7. So now we have people saying, well, we can do a fillable form, or wait a minute, we can maybe put this information out. So one thing is starting to, the snowball has started with, a lot of the things that Jack has been able to help us get going on.
Okay.
So I do agree, there's a lot of stuff downstairs, and we're trying to clean out a lot of stuff.
Right.
But we are in there's more buy-in now than there's ever been.
Okay. Thank you.
Right, anything else?
Yeah. No, I think, and the other part of this is we are also extending this. I think I've talked to you before. Our cybersecurity. This is the business continuity is extending to cybersecurity, and we are also looking for other avenues to be able to communicate with our residents. I believe very shortly. I know one of our employees, Jen Ochoa, has been talking with our attorney Jeff Denafri about our putting out a Facebook page because, as we found out as we've been doing our research. That's one of the best ways to be able to communicate to our residents is through Facebook, so we are also extending that. So this is part of the website. We've got a website team now, and we're really trying to get the town so that they're like most other towns, and you can be able to go to the website and get a lot of information. Like tonight, I could put out information about the snowstorm that's supposedly coming tomorrow, and we could inform people about what plans we're making.
Good. Moving in the 21st century finally. That's, yeah. Yeah, right, exactly. All right, I know, I'm sorry. I'm trying to be, trying to be a
Hey,
little
we're
bit
better than a lot
optimistic. Yeah, come on now.
Especially with business continuity.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, take a motion.
Okay, move to utilize the Capital Regional Council of Governments request for proposal and award the contract to purchase Exchange Online 365 to the Connecticut Center for Advanced Technology for an amount not to exceed $34,248.
Second on that?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Agenda item number 13 is a request for fee waiver. The Kensington Congregational Church has been coming before planning and before the engineering department with plans to do some changes to their church, modify their property, do some additions. What they've requested is to waive the local building and demolition fees. We don't have an exact figure at this point, because they're still in the planning stages. But based on what our Frank Van Linter, our building inspector, could discern, it would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000, the fees. So there's a process for requesting fee waiver. They do meet the definition of a nonprofit group, so I felt I had to bring it to the town council. In the as you go through the ordinances and charter, if it gets to be if it's going to take a significant amount of time of a department, it needs to be approved and go through the town council for approval. So I'm bringing this before you for your review.
Okay.
I just want to say that I'm going to abstain from this because I'm a member of that parish, so.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments on this? We've done this obviously for other organizations in town, right, Peter?
We have, and it's somewhat inconsistent. There are times when we have, and there are other times when other churches have paid fees. I'm not sure they're in this range, but
That's what my question was going to be. This seems to be a pretty significant number.
it is a significant number. St. Paul's has paid number of fees when they did work at their church. I did want to check to make sure that we're being somewhat consistent. St. Paul's though did pay some fees in the last few years for some of the work that they've done out at their buildings.
About Bethany Covenant, their new church, or the Islamic Center out there?
I didn't find those, so I'm not sure about that one.
Would it be better to hold off until we had a better idea what the size of their project is?
That's what I would prefer.
We can do that. Again, the request is, I didn't want to hold it much longer. If you notice the date on the request, it's January, and I did feel that I should bring it to the council for your review. If you want to hold it, I can contact the church and discuss it with them further, and when we get a better handle, bring it back before you.
Yeah, I would have.
Yeah, could we and maybe get a little history on just some of
Yes.
the other churches and nonprofit organizations, just so we try and remain consistent with everyone.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so we'll just
No action.
yeah. Thanks.
No action.
Agenda item number 14, I'm requesting a meeting of the ordinance committee. I've had at least 2 items that have come up recently that we feel we should bring before you. And one of them you're aware of because you've had, over on Commerce Street, you've had a number of requests about the noise. I did go to the police chief and I have instructed the highway department to put no idling signs over there, but we don't have an ordinance that forbids it. So we can put the no idling signs over there, but people may cooperate, they may not. But the chief goes that he can't enforce if he doesn't have an ordinance. So I talked to Attorney Coppola. She says it's an easy. She has a couple examples already. So I feel that I need to request a meeting of the ordinance committee to go over that. The second one is the police department is requesting. We have an alarm ordinance where we get a number of false alarms. We actually penalize the individual. And sometimes they pay, sometimes they don't. The police chief is requesting that we're able to use the town constables to go out and collect those fees. That's not exactly laid out in the ordinance, so we felt that we had to change the ordinance to include that. So I'm asking that you meet that also. So I'm requesting a meeting of the ordinance committee.
Okay.
Okay.
Move to refer the ordinance committee a review of the alarm ordinance and consideration of a new idling ordinance.
Second on that?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, so moved. We'll pick a date, as soon as we can and convene the ordinance committee for those issues. Thank you. This next one, I don't know if, I don't know if the Public Building Commission representative spoke to you?
Yeah, they did, and they, I think they were going to take this up and discuss it further this upcoming Thursday night. I mean, Doug is here, but I did talk to several members of the Public Building Commission about this, and I think at this point they would like to discuss it further. You know, you and I attended a meeting of the Public Building Commission. And I got the sense that they were looking for some direction, but at this point, I'm not sure they're looking for you to direct them to do that at this point. They did get I mean, as part of the project, they did get a price of approximately 1.4 million, right, Doug? Maybe Doug can, if you don't mind, Doug can come up.
Yeah, come on up, Doug, just for a minute, because I had a discussion with somebody from Public Building today about what they want to do, just if it makes sense to us. It made sense to me, but I'm not the engineer or the...
Yeah, from information we can gather, initially I think the intent and the specifications was to have this jacketing installed. However, the code was met without it. During the project about 2 years ago, the committee reached out with the architect and the contractor to see if we can install the jacketing. The price came back, and during the project it was decided that let's not spend the money, you know, right now, midway through the project, let's wait till the end. So now that we're at the end, as Jack said, you know, before, it's kind of a belt and suspenders. It would be a better way to encapsulate the ductwork, prevent any potential water infiltration for years to come. There's been some correspondence with the architect and contractor and everybody, so it would be beneficial. You know, do it now, do it later. Certainly, the sooner we do it, probably the more cost-effective it would be in the future and prevent any potential leaks in the ductwork. So.
Yeah, the project was built to the specification, as Doug said. If you go up there, you know, the ductwork is on top of the roof. At some point, you know, it does meet the code that was required as part of the project. You know, that we need to say. It is currently sealed and painted per the specifications, and that has been certified by the architect. FIP, the contractor, and Gilbane, the project manager, both said it meets that requirement. But as Doug said, you know, if you go up there, there are exposed joints. I mean, they are sealed with caulk, and let's be clear about that. But as a belt and suspender, if there's been concerns about leakage, this is one way to provide like an insurance policy, albeit an expensive one, but it does provide you with an insurance policy as it wraps the duct, either with aluminum jacketing or there was a rubber, basically a rubber coating that they can wrap on there. The aluminum jacketing comes with additional insulation. I was requesting, and I don't know if Doug's had a chance, requesting from the architect to let me know what the R value change would be with the additional insulation. Now, I know that the building commission got a price of about $1.4 million, and I believe rightfully so. They think they have met the requirement of the building specifications and the education specifications. So they feel that this would be above what the ed specs require. And Attorney D'Onofrio can, you know, if you have any questions about what the whole project is governed by the education specifications. So that's been the discussion up to this point. And there is just some concern that if there was a leak, you know, it gets into the air handler, and at that point, you know, if there was any contamination, you know, air mold or something that developed, it would get spread through the building, through the air. So that's the issue.
Yeah, and we don't certainly want that to happen, brand new high school. So all they're asking, from what I understand, and you know, maybe I'd just like to wait on this item because I know they wanted to look. I think they wanted a consultant to look at. They believe there's some water coming in possibly from the air handlers, way out of my bailiwick, but that there's not screens on them and there's some things that weren't done, and I think what they're hoping for is there is some contractor liability for potentially some of those leaks. That's what they're thinking. So, you know.
Yeah, a couple points to that. The town, through several rainstorms and snowstorms over the last few years, we've kind of learned the areas where water can infiltrate through an air handling unit, OAS unit, anything. So
right.
we've modified some units, installed hoods. replaced gaskets on doors, sealed up several punctures in the roof due to maintenance and traffic and things that have blown across the roof over time. We've narrowed it down to about 2 areas where we have reoccurring issues that have gotten a lot better, but it is a constant maintenance issue. So we've made modifications to factory equipment where on a wind-blown rain or heavy snow melt, heavy rain, water has found a way through a pipe chase, through a curb adapter, etc. So we've worked very diligently to try to remedy those problems, but certainly the ductwork, caulking, and joints down the road are a concern. Per the current charter, the project could potentially be over $1 million, which automatically would be referred to the Public Building Commission.
Have we looked inside that ductwork yet?
Oh, yeah.
And?
Oh, the ductwork, I mean, the area Doug opened the ductwork for me, and I actually have a sample in the back of my car. It's a fabric. What it is, it's an outside jacket that's made of metal. The inside is an insulation pad, which is fabric. It's expanded. Basically, it looks like household insulation, except it's much denser. It's black. It's a relatively smooth surface, and it has fasteners that take it and fasten to the metal interior. Doug and I, we inspected that last Thursday or Friday. We were up looking at it. The area that we looked nice, looked very clean, very, it wasn't leaking or anything, but I did want to take a look on the inside and see what. So it's a fabric material. My concern there is if it gets wet, you have to be very careful about that.
Yes.
I understand that the determination has been made that the ductwork as installed meets applicable code and that the ductwork was installed per the specs, but has a determination been made, notwithstanding code compliance, whether or not the design was consistent with the highest prevailing standard of care?
I'm trying to remember if that term, if we've gone to that point. My understanding, Jeff, is it meets the envelope that's required for the education specifications for the state education grant.
Okay. As of October 1, 2009, the legislature changed the law to require that architects providing design services on public school projects receiving grants perform their services as what at the statute refers to as the highest prevailing standard of care. So the question would be, and I can put you in touch with other architects who do schoolwork, the question would be whether or not it was reasonable to have ductwork on a rooftop on a school in Berlin, Connecticut, that wasn't properly waterproofed or insulated.
I think
that would be something that I think would be worth a discussion with a third-party architect just to get an opinion.
I would say after looking inside, I agree. I have some concerns. I've shared those with the mayor. I think I've been pretty succinct with him about my concerns, and that's why I asked Doug to open the ductwork so I could actually look inside for myself and see what the material was. So I do have some concerns, and I think that would be a good conversation. I'd like to do that.
Certainly a lot more expensive to do it now than it would have been if it was part of the base scope and part of the original design.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. There's a and I believe last year during the budget season, I know the council heard me several times say, this is an expensive operation for Doug and the crew to do now. I mean, if you go up there, there's a lot of linear feet of duct and about 1,000 new filters that he has to change on an annual basis while we have a new high school, we have improved air quality. It comes at a cost. I mean, there's a lot more air conditioned space. That air has to be clean, and so to do that, you need to make sure it's dry and it's filtered and the systems are running properly. And we've had some issues with the refrigeration side of that. We've had to have a chiller company come in. We actually have an extension on the warranty on the chiller because there were some issues with the installation. We've corrected those, but we got an extension on the warranty. So I think it's a good conversation to have to make sure that this does meet the requirements.
Right. The two questions would be, does it depart from the prevailing standard of care? And if the answer to the first question is yes, then what's the upcharge? In other words, the measure of damages in Connecticut on a design omission is the delta between what it would have cost had it been in the design to begin with and what it did cost. Because if it had been in the design to begin with, the project would have incurred the expense for that waterproofing. So you don't, if it's $1.4 million, you don't get the whole $1.4 million, you get the difference between what it would have cost had it been designed correctly and what it costs now. But it certainly would be, I think, a significant upcharge because you're talking about basically a separate project, right? Everybody's demobilized on that project?
Correct, yeah, the benefit to this project, it can realistically be done anytime with the exception of the winter due to temperatures and adhesives, but at a previous meeting, working with the program manager, the benefit to potentially running it through the current high school project is it could potentially be reimbursable from the
Right, it's not a repair, it's an additional building component, so it wouldn't be deemed by OSCGR as a repair or a maintenance item.
If it were to be future funded in capital, we would incur the entire cost.
Right.
I have a question, Jack. It was my understanding that there was some design changes to the school, that this ductwork had to go on the roof because it couldn't go in the school. How much of that is true?
I'm going to have to refer to Doug.
Yep, with the HBB standards and the air exchangers by the new code, there wasn't enough room above the ceilings to get all the ductwork.
Okay, so when they made that change, there was probably some cost changes, and this duct is galvanized, it's insulated, and it was designed that way. So I think the Public Building Commission wants to make sure that they did their due diligence, that it was installed correctly, followed the right protocols, and there isn't any contractor responsibility for faulty workmanship or whatever. So I don't disagree with them going down that route like Jeff said.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it would be prudent before we go and spend, I think it should remain in the school project, no question, but before we spend additional taxpayer bonded money, we should at least have all the answers.
Yep.
And maybe the Public Building Commission, don't they meet this week, I think?
They meet Thursday night, and
The issues that Attorney D'Onofrio brought up, we probably need some more answers just before we go forward to, if it's something we can get reimbursed, or if there's other contractor liability somewhere, or, we need to explore that first. I would think that'd be the prudent way to go.
Yep.
You guys agree? Attorney D'Onofrio, does that make sense before we go forward and just go ahead and spend the money, or, even though it's within the school project?
It does make sense. I mean, it's certainly something that I would recommend be expedited, because until you resolve this issue, you can't pay the final bill.
Right.
And until you pay the final bill, the Board of Ed can't accept it as complete. And until the Board of Ed accepts it as complete, the audit clock doesn't begin to run. So the state, based on last fall's budget, increased the holdback from 2% to 11%. So they're holding 11% of your grant money until
Right.
the audit's complete.
Yeah, I know, we want to do it as quickly as possible, and we want to close this project out and fix what we have to fix within the project. I mean, we don't want to incur those costs on the capital side of the town. That would be not a fiscally responsible thing to do. So if we can just table this and get those answers, some more answers before we move forward with that, what do you all guys think?
No,
I mean, does that
yeah.
make sense? Just
Yeah.
get the answers, but as quickly as possible.
Yep.
So I guess when the weather breaks, they can conceivably do it, right?
Yeah, we can certainly add it to the agenda. I know it's already on there, but we'll make sure we re-engage it at this week's meeting, Public Building Commission.
Yeah, okay. All right,
I think we have to, I don't think we can table it. If we table it, then we have to revisit it in the same meeting, don't we?
No action.
No.
No action.
No action, yeah. I mean, let's, if we could keep it on the agenda for the next two, from 2 weeks from now, so we keep it foremost in our mind, and we could, move forward on it once we get just a few more answers before we just make a decision that's maybe not correct.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Thank you. Thank you.
Agenda item number 16, Denise Parsons here to apprise you of the Berlin white collar contract. We've reached an agreement with the white collar employees, and so she's here to give you the details of the contract.
Hi, Denise, how you doing?
Good, how's everybody?
Good.
So we started with the white collar union negotiations back in June. They, like the police, decided that they wanted to change collective bargaining affiliations. So they went through a decertification process, And also during that process, our dispatchers separated out from the white collar. So essentially what happened last June, or subsequently more like September, October, what the result was that we now have a separate, dispatcher union and a white collar union. So the contract that I'm presenting to you tonight is the resulting white collar contract with the changes in it. And I hope to be coming back to you in the next couple of weeks with the dispatchers. We're waiting for the contract back for them to ratify. So what you'll see in the agenda item, the major changes that we have is the removal of the dispatchers. We sunsetted or grandfathered the longevity. That's something we've been doing in all of our town contracts, so we did attain that with the white collar as well. Removal of a special overtime pay for library workers assigned to work a weekend following a holiday. This was special language that's been part of the white collar contract for years. Nobody really understood why. It was a benefit that only a few people benefited from, so it is now gone. The tuition reimbursement was capped at $4,000 per year for the entire membership. This was really to put a budget number on it. We really haven't had utilization of this benefit at all in the time that I've been here, but it was there to protect us if in the future somebody came forward with a request. We really had no reason or authority to say no because it was in the contract. So now we've capped it with a $4,000 annual limit. That's for the whole group, so if 6 people come in, they all have a benefit that they want, it'll be divided amongst all 6 equally. Part-time eligibility for health benefits. So right now in most of the town contracts, we still have language that a part-time employee who works a minimum of 28 hours per week is eligible for health care. We don't have any employees working 28 hours a week to prevent that. Our part-time employees, we keep them under 25. But to comply with health care reform, which is now 30 hours per week for that benefit, we've gotten this changed in the contract as well. So now they have to work 30 hours, which will also allow us to increase the hours for our current part-time if we wanted to without hitting that cost of health care. The annual carryover vacation time has been capped. Previously, there was no cap on the vacation time. It was at the town manager's discretion, but it didn't have a limit, so now we have a limit on it. We also put a cap on the family sick leave. So white collar is one of 3 unions that currently have unlimited family sick time attached to their employee sick time. So my employee sick time can cap out at 180 days. I could technically use all of those days if I had a sick family member. We've been working to cap that in all of our union contracts. Some didn't have family sick at all, so we're trying to make it consistent, and we've now capped them at 10 days per year. There is language in there that allows the town manager at his discretion to allow them to use more in extenuating circumstances. The union asked that we add verbal warning as an additional step for progressive discipline. We did do that. However, understand that we can start progressive discipline at any level based on the severity of the infraction, so that doesn't impede us from doing anything that we need to do from our end. And then clarification on the promotional pay. This is just in their contract. If they move from, they have 8 classifications. If I get promoted from classification 2 into classification 4, the language was not clear where you fell in the salary lanes. If you go from a 3 to a 4, you just go straight down in your salary lane and you don't have to move anywhere. If you previously it said if you went from a 3 to a 5, you had to find where the next highest number was without going over, and it was very convoluted. So we've clarified that just for going forward. We didn't really change what we were doing, just clarified the language. And then the wages, which is what everybody wants to know, 2 1/4, 2 1/4, 2 1/4, and this is consistent with what we've done the last 2 contracts we settled with mid-managers and with the police. And that's it. So they have voted and ratified in February, and we are looking for your vote as well so we can get this one off the table.
Okay, and I take it the town is as happy as they can be with the
We are.
with what we
Yeah.
had in this negotiation.
And so the folks that sat through our negotiation committee, it was myself, Kevin Delaney, Jack, and our counsel, Kevin Roy from Shipman and Goodwin. If you go through the items that are changing, the majority of them are pro-town. They did make a lot of, what's the right word? A lot of agreements for us on our side. They really didn't have a lot they were looking for on their end. And I think everybody is mindful of the budget and our financial circumstances, so we were happy with where we ended up.
Okay. questions? Okay, hearing, we'll take a motion.
Move to approve the contract between the Town of Berlin and the CALU Local Number 2 White Collar Employees for the period July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2020.
Second on that.
Second.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Denise.
Thank you.
Town managers report?
Town manager report. You've actually hit a lot of the high points already, but there's a couple other things. With regards to security, I think you know we've been installing a elevator in the community center and library. We've have a group of us looking at security issues associated with that elevator and when it's going to operate and how it's going to operate if the community center is closed and the library is open and vice versa. So we're just working through that. It may include the installation of some some gates and some more cameras, but we're trying to make sure that we coordinate that between the library and the community center. So that's being worked on right now. A group of us formed a bridge committee and interviewed architects and engineers for those 4 bridge renovation projects. We've selected one. I'm not going to announce it yet because it has to go to the state DOT. Actually, we're very fortunate that we have one of the people who administers the program from DOT lives in Berlin, and so he sat in on the interviews and was one of the interviewing parties. So we've made that recommendation. We're just waiting to hear back from the state, but that project is moving right along. I don't know if you saw on Channel 30 about a week and a half ago, they had they had a discussion about the state funding on bridges. And if you go to the website, one of the bridges that was on their list was the Burnham Street Bridge. So they're bringing attention to the fact that the state needs to fund these projects. The Burnham Street Bridge, we have gone out and are obtaining bids right now. We feel that when the state does go ahead and release those funds, we'll be in a position to go ahead, issue a contract and jump on it and build it, assuming it's the spring, get it done in one construction season, so we don't have to go through a winter. So when we bid the project, we did put in the wording for the bid that it was contingent on the state bonding. We have a group that's looking at the ADA compliance. We have a certain amount we have $25,000 annually in our budget for ADA compliance. It's a requirement that we continue to try to improve. We had an assessment done of the library, the town hall, and the senior center. We have some, as with any building of those ages, we have some non-compliance issues. So we are right now working and picking off the low-hanging fruit, the easy ones that we can modify and bring us into code. One of them is there's a walkway in front of the library that needs a ramp that needs to be modification. So once the spring comes, we'll be modifying the ramp in front of the library to make it more accessible, changing some of the bathrooms and door closures and things like that. So we are ongoing with that. And the last one is we have a group meeting looking over a list of town-owned properties, and we're looking at, if any of these properties are available to sell. Obviously that would go through the council, go through the Board of Finance, the council as part of the budget thing. But we are looking at a extensive list of town-owned properties. It's amazing where we have little pieces of property all around town, but we're also making sure that they aren't ones that are there part of the planning and zoning process either. So I mean, we have to be careful which ones we select. But we are evaluating each piece of property. We are also looking at ones that include buildings that currently aren't being used. The one we look at I think every time we look at the list, we bring up is the red house at the entrance down here. It has historic value, but it doesn't meet any code. So is not there's nothing we can use it for. It's a structure. We have to maintain it, but we can't use it for anything. So we're looking at every piece of property like that. The budget is tight, and we need to look at all of our avenues. So we are doing that. And that would be part of we're hoping that's part of the discussion this year during the budget season to discuss these properties.
And Jack, you're doing title searches on things like that, so we don't run into like what we did on Knights of Columbus property.
Yeah, we at this point right now it's a staff review, okay. And we're looking at we're looking at the first level. Before we would go forward, we would look at all of that, make sure that we're anything that we do recommend that we're not stepping into something.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you. Special committee reports. Do we have any? We met, right? No, nobody met. So we'll have to pick. All right, we'll have to pick a ordinance committee, soon. Can we do it this month, or do we have enough to do this month? I guess we have budgets,
Do it anytime you want.
whenever everybody's available.
How about a half hour before the next meeting? Enough time, half hour?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm on ordinance, and I am
Ordinance.
actually out of town for the next meeting.
all right.
All right.
You want to do the one after that, the first one in April? Want to do it
fine.
then?
Yeah,
Is that good? Yep.
Sure.
That works.
So, what is that? I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be here.
You there? Everybody's here? All right, and we'll have the agenda, obviously, with the things we sent to the ordinance committee, those two ordinances. All right, so that takes care of that. Counselor communications. I just wanted to, I did want to inform the council that the Board of Finance tabled our request to transfer $30,000 to get a design build on the jail cells. Not really sure of the reason for that. We don't even have enough information to know how much they will cost without that study. So maybe when we meet with them Monday night, we can talk about that and try and resolve that.
I have a question to our
Sure.
consigliere.
Sure.
According to the charter, when the Board of Finance takes an action, and I'm confused in my mind because they didn't disapprove it. They tabled it.
Right.
Now, is that called for
It's not a
the,
rejection, it's not,
right, now is that called for a meeting of heads of the 5 families? I mean,
it's not the budget.
so what happens?
Well, presumably, they'll take it up at a future meeting. I don't know, I haven't seen the minutes to know what the discussion was. I saw this, I received this just says no action. I don't know what the, discussion and possible action, no action. So I know what the action was, none, but I don't know what the discussion was.
I mean, I can't speak for them, and I won't, but I mean, I was there, and I did hear some of the, you know, again, I'm not their words, mine, but they wanted more of a plan, I think, for the police station, which I thought we did, because we sent that statement of needs forward to look at renovating downstairs, but I'm not sure that's that's part of the issue. I will grant them that, but, you know, we're stuck with these cells that are a liability. They've been there for a long time, I understand that, but we're aware of it now, and we have some funding to fix them, rather than spend overtime for our officers to sit there. I'd rather we spend overtime for our officers to sit at a school than in the police department, but, so, that was the, you know, basic thing I got out of what they said. But again, maybe we can, yeah, I mean, I mean, we can certainly, hopefully we'll have a joint meeting coming up, we could talk to them. But let's say they don't want to ever, it's tabled for the next 3 years, I don't know.
Well, under 8-11-5 of the charter, the appropriation has to be approved by the Board of Finance. So if the Board of Finance doesn't approve it, then it doesn't go forward.
Okay. So there's no resolution to that.
So I was under the impression that when there was no action, that we had to have a joint meeting and it needed to be called. Can you please let me know or let us know, is that in the charter? If there is no action on an item, do we need to have a joint meeting on that particular item?
8-11-5 of the charter, project appropriation. In the event the project appropriation is approved by a majority vote of the council, which it was, the project being the design build.
Mm-hmm.
With the approval of the Board of Finance and in accordance with 711 or 610-6 of the charter, the architect shall then prepare final plans and submit same to the Public Building Commission for approval, and thereafter to the board, commission, or department which created the statement of need for approval. So there's nothing in 8-11-5 that contemplates no action and what happens when no action is taken. But obviously, there is specific language that says with the approval of the Board of Finance. So it contemplates the project going forward only with the approval of the Board of Finance. 711, the two sections in the charter that are referenced aren't really applicable. 711 deals with unbudgeted, unencumbered funds. And that process is the process we went through already, which is seeking the appropriation from the Board of Finance for the project. And 6-10-6 pertains to the bond authorization and borrowing. So none of those provisions provide that when a specific project appropriation is sought by the Public Building Commission and approved by a majority vote of the council, there's no joint meeting if the Board of Finance doesn't take action. It just says with the approval of the Board of Finance.
So I guess my next question is, since it wasn't acted upon by the Board of Finance, instead of just saying maybe we'll talk about it on Monday, let's get it onto an agenda so we can talk about it.
Well, we will talk about it. I mean, it's a budget meeting, so, you know, we can add it to the agenda, and I don't know if that's appropriate for that meeting, but we can find out. But, well, I'm just curious, you know, obviously this is new to us and to the Board of Finance. Other towns, are there things we, I don't know, left out of the charter that should have been there that address that issue? Because it seems like an issue that could create some real issues with priorities that the council sets. And if the Board of Finance apparently doesn't agree or has other questions, that's fine, that comes back to us. But, you know, how does the process go back and forth between them? Because, so now we're sitting here with a tabled item, which could be tabled forever, or for a week, or for a month, or we don't know how long.
Well,
Right?
in a town that has, it depends on the form of government. For example, in a town that has a Board of Selectmen with a town council or a pure town meeting or an RTM, the Board of Selectmen could send it to referendum. Okay. In most towns where there's a town manager, town council, Board of Finance, and a permanent project building committee, the charter is usually silent about what happens if the project doesn't get approved by the Board of Finance, because then the understanding is that the project is dead, unless there's some authority elsewhere in the charter to send the project to referendum. You know, the charter does provide in 8-11-8, the council and the Board of Finance shall act within 30 days of initially considering any agenda item concerning matters set forth in section 8-11 of the chapter. But the law is not that, if the intention was that if the Board of Finance did not act within a specific time period, that the appropriation be approved, that would have had to have been specified in the charter, and it's not. So you can't, I don't think it's reasonable to make the argument that the failure of the Board of Finance to act on this matter is tantamount to an approval.
And what was that section you just read?
8-11-8.
Sure, why not? Go ahead, Jerry. Or probably, I'll be up here. Mr. John Brown, who chairs the Board of Finance, welcome.
Jerry Paradis, Board of Finance. I think what we were looking at, Jeff, was there's a section somewhere before 6-10 that deals with the transfer out of excess funds from a project. And that was the action that was being taken that night. We were taking money from an old capital project and transferring it to a new project. And the charter does say within that section that both the council and the Board of Finance would approve it. So that being within section 6- whatever, we felt then that 6-10-6- I think H covered the fact that if no action was taken or if it was rejected, that a joint meeting would then have to be held.
Say that.
So if we were wrong,
Yeah, it's not, page 22.
So just so I understand, what you're saying is that even though this is a project that initiated with the PBC, the Board of Finance's interpretation is that Section 6-10-6, which generally governs bond authorization and borrowing,
but it also deals with what to do with the leftover funds at the end of the project.
but what are we talking about in terms of leftover funds?
The funds are from another project, and so Kevin's been going through and cleaning up some of these old projects, and we're not supposed to keep funds, bonded monies too long for arbitrage reasons. So what he wanted to do is close out that project and utilize some of those bond proceeds, those residuals, as Jerry said, 30,000 of them to start the jail cell project that request, we're working with 2 other towns. As part of that, they want 30,000. The proposal is for $30,000 to go, because it's a design build, to go toward the actual design portion of that project. So I believe that's where we came up with the money.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, the council doesn't have the responsibility of requesting where the funds come from. The council has the responsibility of requesting the appropriation from the Board of Finance. It's up to the Board of Finance to determine whether the expenditure should be funded through some inter-budget or intra-budget transfer of funds. So if that's what the Board of Finance is concerned about, then yeah, I would agree that 6-10-6H would apply. And under that scenario, that language does provide that if the Board of Finance doesn't approve an appropriation recommended by the council within 30 days of the council's action, a joint meeting has to be held within 14 days of the disapproval or inaction.
Well, it says 14 days and then 30 days, doesn't it?
Within 14 days of disapproval or inaction within 30 days.
Right.
Right.
So we need to do it.
Yep.
Yeah, so, I guess if that's your reason, that wasn't the reason that you said at the meeting, but if that's what you're...
So that's the result of,
That's a result of what your decision was.
you have the joint meeting to discuss
Yeah.
what's going on with the police station.
Let's have it.
Thank you, Jerry.
Go for it.
Thank you.
So when would we schedule that? As soon as possible.
Is it too late to add to Monday's agenda?
I don't know.
No.
No. There's plenty of time.
Why don't we? I mean, we're gonna meet with them anyway.
Let's do it.
Did we get notification of Monday's meeting?
I didn't know about Monday's meeting.
Yeah, this is like news.
No, the Monday's meeting's been scheduled for, it's part of the budget process, and that's the joint meeting between the town council and the Board of Finance.
The budget
You
meeting
can, you
has been
can,
scheduled.
you can notice it as a separate meeting, either before or after your...
We're there talking about it anyway. What's the difference? Why set another meeting and take up more of your time?
Sam, on the mic. I'm deaf anyway.
Ah,
Is it 7 o'clock?
Yeah, the meeting's at 7 o'clock, yeah.
Sam Lamaglio, 78 Hickory Hill Road. We're in a tight schedule. We're going to miss a day on tomorrow because of the snow. And we have some dates that we have to keep up. And plus, we're looking at we've got some departments coming in. So we prefer to have it another day. It'll be a lot easier for us. Because it's just the budget time. It's not going to fit in our schedule.
well, would another meeting fit in your schedule better? Or?
We're gonna, yes, it would, because we'll do it on another night. But it just, that, and plus, we've set our agenda, and we're actually giving you, I hate to insult you, but we're only gonna be around 30, 35 minutes to talk, because we're on a tight schedule, very tight. Because it's a new board, And a lot of individuals have not known. We're just on a tight schedule. It's a new board, and we're going to go department by department. And it's time consuming right now. Very time consuming for us. It's our first year to do the budget. If it was our second or third year, we could squeeze it in, but we've got a lot of new members that are not familiar with the departments, as Jerry and I. We're the only two people that are familiar with the departments. So we're educating the new members, and it's going to take time for us. So if you can just appreciate the time that we're putting into the budget, and we'll do it another night. Any night you want, we'll do it. Any night. But it's just, next week is tight for us. Matter of fact, we're probably going to add a couple extra meetings for the budget because of the storms that are coming. So if we can figure out a date, that'll be great.
Don't worry, Sam, I appreciate the time. Been there.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't have to tell you.
All right,
But yeah,
so we'll
but
pick
we
another
have to
day.
find a day. If we have 30 days, we got to find it in that 30 days, don't we?
Correct.
Right?
No, 30.
14 days.
There's no
30.
action.
So we have 30 days. So I think within the 30 days, we'll probably only need an hour to discuss it. I mean, we do have some questions about the project and some concerns. So, I mean, you're going to have to hear us out, and then we'll hear you out, and we'll vote. See where it goes. Okay? Thank you.
So do we have a date we can pick while Mr. Chair and Mr. Co-Chair from the Finance?
How about the next day, Tuesday? Something like
I think
got
that,
budget
I think
hearings.
next
Oh.
week, next week is bad, right? Is that what you're telling? Yeah, let's just, I know you.
I have some dates on my way, so I'll give those to you.
Yeah, I have dates on the way too.
I mean, we could discuss the date on Monday when
All right.
we have the whole board together. How
We
about
can do that.
we talk about on Monday? And then we'll have the whole board, and we'll all figure out what time is good, because Jerry and I might say tonight, and then some board members can't make it. So let's talk about the date on Monday, and then we'll figure it out.
Sam,
Yes.
just share where that meeting is. I didn't have that on my calendar.
Town council chambers.
Board of Finance.
Board of Finance, I mean, no,
Ed.
Board of Ed, I'm
Board of Ed.
sorry. All our meetings will be at the Board of Ed. But we can work out a date. We're not unreasonable. We'll figure something out. We'll see.
Yeah, I printed one that said our special meeting on the 12th is here in this room.
Okay, so we will talk about that Monday. That, by the way, just, if, maybe you guys didn't catch it, but these budget meetings, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks ago, they went out on our email. They were in our email somewhere. Yeah, I think Kevin Delaney might have sent them out, and it had different, like, budget meetings, so, you know, yeah, can we send them out again, make sure everybody's aware? Huh? What's that?
Itinerary, tell us where to be and when to be there.
Well, we're all adults. We have to, read our email and figure it out. But I know it's confusing. Listen, there's a lot. For those of you that are new, and point well taken by Sam and Jerry. I mean, it's very difficult. The budget season's very difficult, and I think you guys on the council this year are a little bit at a disadvantage, and I find that. Just the system, that's the system we're with now, and that's fine, but having not been through a couple budgets, you have to pick up as much as you can on your own, hence this booklet we got, but I would urge you, I went last night to their budget hearing, which was the Board of Ed budget being presented and just the overall revenue and debt services of the town, but I think Thursday night now. Is it Thursday? The next, that's where the town departments are coming in Thursday, right? At 7 downstairs. So that's the next one where you'll hear from the town departments about what's going on, and then whatever we can get the schedule out, Jack, just for the other meetings. So it might be worthwhile if you can make it. I understand it's a burden for everybody to hear just what the Board of Finance is hearing. So when the budget comes to us, we will be better educated to make our decision. So if you can make it, it's good to hear it. And, I'm sure I don't want to overburden Mr. Delaney. He's already overburdened, but if you can get maybe a few minutes with him schedule, he would help you to go through it the best you can. It is a cumbersome process, so. Okay, so council communications, okay, we got through that part, so.
So I have some questions,
Yes,
may I?
yes.
Okay.
You're
So, 2 weeks ago, we had our last meeting, and I had some questions about specific sections in the charter. The first one being Section 5-1 with the appointment of interim manager in the event of a vacancy, which is 180 days, am I correct? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so then we go over to Section 5.6, a temporary manager, and that says in the manager's absence or disability for a period of less than 30 days, we could have a temporary manager during that period, correct? Okay, and then we go to the next thing that says acting manager, so if the absence or disability is beyond the 30 consecutive days, we could then have an acting manager for 150 days?
You're talking about 5.7?
5.7, yes. Okay, so my question is, when I read this, I see a vacancy, an absence, and a disability. And I interpret that my way. Can you share if it means the same? Because that seems to be what we've done.
Okay.
So I guess my question is, a vacancy, an absence, and a disability, all the same?
No.
Okay, so how can we then have been doing this, especially now if I add it all up, it's 360 days, and we're well beyond that. So are we in violation of the charter?
The interpretation of Chapter 5 that I gave the prior council, I'll repeat for the benefit of the new council members, because that's really what you're asking about, is what is the charter provide in terms of appointing, whether it be interim, temporary, or acting town manager, right? You start with the fact that under Charter Section 3-8, the legislative power of the town is vested exclusively in the council. And one of the council's responsibilities as the town's legislative body is to comply with the requirements of Chapter 5. The overriding theme of Chapter 5, for multiple reasons that I'll explain in a minute, is that there not be a vacancy in the manager position, right? You have a permanent manager, you have an interim manager, you have a temporary manager, you have an acting manager. And the charter clearly is written in a way to avoid a vacancy in the town manager position. So when the original appointment took place, I believe it was as a temporary manager, because Denise McNair, the town manager at the time, had resigned, and
She did not resign.
And that's not an absence, that would be a vacancy, wouldn't it?
Our agreement
Finish?
says
Sure.
she did.
5-2 of the charter specifically says, upon the suspension, removal, or resignation of the manager, the council may appoint a temporary manager. Okay? So when Denise McNair resigned,
She did not resign.
Well, the council ratified a resignation agreement. I guess you can, certainly have your opinion, but you can't have your own facts, because the facts are what they are in an agreement.
the separation agreement that was executed by the town and Ms. McNair indicates that she resigned her position as town manager. So, on the basis of that,
And where does that state the resignation? What section? I'm sorry.
5-2.
5-2, thank you.
On the suspension, removal, or resignation of the manager, the council may appoint a temporary manager. Okay? So obviously, there was not a vacancy in the manager position when Ms. McNair resigned. Her resignation was not effective the night that the council approved the separation agreement. It was effective at a future date.
Mm-hmm.
So the position was never vacant. But because of the resignation, it triggered a future vacancy date, which was filled by the council when they appointed Mr. Healy as the temporary manager under 5-2. The charter not only has 4 different types of manager to ensure
that the town manager position is never vacant, but it has some fairly significant provisions that deal with a scenario where there is no acting manager. For example, if you look at Charter Section 5-7, in the event of a manager's absence or disability for 30 consecutive days or more, the office of manager shall be filled as an acting manager. And the council, in that scenario where the manager is absent or disabled, if the council fails to appoint an acting manager, the council has to reconvene every 2 business days until an acting manager is appointed. So clearly, the intent of the charter is that the manager position not be vacant. And clearly, 5-1 of the charter contemplates that a search will be completed within a 180-day period, because it says in 5-1, which you referenced earlier, that the council shall appoint an interim manager in the event of a vacancy in the manager's position to serve at the pleasure of the council for not more than 180 days while a search is conducted for a manager. And then a couple sentences later, it says, upon completion of a search, the council shall appoint for an indefinite term a manager who shall be the chief executive officer of the town to serve at the pleasure of the council. So we have a situation where the legislative power of the town is vested exclusively in the town council, and the legislative body of the town is responsible for selecting the permanent town manager, appointing the temporary, interim, or acting town manager. There's no other board or commission or agency that has jurisdiction over that duty. So my opinion is that if you were to say to me, well, we don't have a vacancy in the town manager position because we have Mr. Healy serving in an interim role, but he shouldn't be allowed to continue an interim role, or no one should be allowed to continue an interim role because we haven't filled the position within the time period contemplated by the charter, I would have to disagree with you.
That's not what I'm saying, and I would prefer not to have you, put words into my mouth.
I'm not putting words in your mouth. I just gave you what my opinion is.
Okay. So you also said in 5.7 that there's an absence of disability, but we actually have a vacancy.
No, I wasn't saying 5-7 applies. What I was saying is, as an example of the charter being written in a way to avoid that position being vacant, there's some rather aggressive expectations about what will happen when it is vacant.
But isn't it vacant? I mean, right now we have, I know we have Jack, and thank you for what you've done, but we do have a vacancy, correct?
You have a vacancy in the permanent town manager position.
Okay, so we don't have an absence or a disability, correct?
I agree with that, yes.
Okay. So what I'm saying is, are we in violation of the charter? Because I do believe we do need someone to act in that capacity, but we've gone beyond each of the different time frames. Do we need to, because of the charter, do we need to have a new person placed in that role in a temporary basis or in whatever term you want to call it?
That's a discussion that the council has to have as the legislative body of the town. If that's something that you feel should be discussed, then you can, I think there's an executive session tonight on the topic.
Okay. Anybody else? Councilor comments? None? Yes?
I have some. So, is there any way to get notification of critical incidents in the town? So, for example, the incident with the school and the threats. Some people were asking me, being the town councilor, what do you know and what's going on? And, to my embarrassment, I had to say I don't know anything. And a lot of the information I found out from the media. So I'm wondering, and I know there's, it could be sensitive information as far as public releasability, but if at some point after the dust has settled, I know in a critical incident we have to handle it, I get it, but when the dust has settled, if maybe we could just get a publicly releasable notification via email or something like that. And then I'm also encouraged by the fact that the Facebook page, if and when that ever gets up and running, it would be good to put that on there to alleviate Mr. Benson, who left, to alleviate his concerns, because I could understand how, I don't have any kids in the school, but I would be really concerned if I did and I didn't know anything, and you know what I mean? So those are pretty much my two questions, just notification to the town council when possible, within a reasonable time period. I get it's not going to be immediate. And then maybe just public notification. I'm sure we probably already have something like that. Do we, or do we not?
As far as public notification, not directly. We do place things on the town website, but I think to your point, it should be more formal. I know we can and will in the future send you, notifications through your email. This is part of what we're doing with the going to the Facebook and going to the town and improving the town website. In the past, we have sometimes put things on the town website. I'm not sure everybody goes there, but we do try to use that.
That's why I asked about the reverse 911, and what John had said was Everbridge, because you can then get those telephone calls that can alert you that there is something happening in town. We use that in our company, and it's, whenever there's an incident, we're able to tell our employees right away.
I think you're talking about more sensitive issues that we don't want to broadcast, right?
Right. I mean, a little bit of both. I also know with Everbridge, I guess it could be programmed to put anything you want, but usually the Everbridge are more plain Jane, like, the school's in lockdown, please be advised, or,
At least it gives some information.
I received an Everbridge when Sandy Hook happened, or, when there's a death of an employee at work or something like that, but they don't give you any details, so I guess.
We all want to be informed, so that we
Yeah,
can
so
speak
maybe
to
just
it
like
if
an email.
somebody inquires,
Yeah, just something, I guess, if possible.
Some of this is, Kate's pointing out, some of this is through the Board of Ed, and they do send out information. I think when it comes to sensitive information like that, I think our office and the superintendent's office have to coordinate that so that you're getting consistent information. Things I'd be concerned is that we send out, we send out one thing, the Board of Ed sends out another thing. I think we need to coordinate that prior to you sending it out.
Yeah, and that's why probably like an immediate notification wouldn't be the best thing, but like after the dust is settled, maybe if it's within the workday, the same business day at the end of the day, and you have time, or the next day, just something to notify us, I guess. And it doesn't have to be, how the sausage is made, so to speak, but, maybe something just, hey, this is what happened, this is what it was about, and then, like with the, somebody who asked me, a townsperson asked me about it, I'm like, I saw it, like, briefly on the news, but I don't know anything about it. And I didn't feel comfortable, calling the police department or calling the school and saying, hey, I'm town council or whatever, I want to know. I mean, they're busy enough, you know what I mean? So that's it, just something to think about.
I actually did get notification from the Board of Ed, and I also got an email. So I actually knew everything about the situation as it was happening, like kind of in real time. Like when they told the children, they sent the communication to the parents. So I mean, I'll tell you guys later what happened if you want to know.
Okay. So that tends to happen.
That system works.
I think the Board of Ed notifies you guys if you got somebody in school, but if you don't, yeah, we don't know. Yeah, that seems to be what happens with the school stuff, right? We never know.
And Mr. Benson said he didn't know or hear anything about it either.
Yeah, and he had someone in school, you said, right?
Yeah.
Who?
Mr. Benson, who spoke.
Yeah.
He didn't have children in school.
It was grandson.
Right, so the parents got the notification.
Grandson, so
Yes,
probably
because
wouldn't
I don't
get it,
get notifications of
Right.
my grandkids either.
Right.
Yes.
Denise?
To the corner.
Somebody's got to do it.
So the Board of Ed has a whole system for parents with kids in school, and if you don't have kids in the school system, it's very likely we could add you to those systems if you wanted to be added in. We could put you on every single school so that you're getting the calls, but you would also get the calls from the principal that go out to say, don't forget parent-teacher night is tonight, don't forget this is happening. But those emergency calls also get broadcasted out via voicemail to parents. That's probably how you found out about it. So it's how much do you want to know versus do you want to know the important stuff only? Yeah, and it would be the grandparent didn't get it because they're not on there.
They're not on
Yeah.
it.
I guess the distinction for me is not just Board of Ed or school-related critical incidents, but all critical incidents. For example, if there's a fatal accident on the Berlin Turnpike, or you know, a shooting somewhere, or just, you know, critical incidents in general. So, you know, I don't know. That's all.
Well, people, that was right. People think because we're counselors, we know what's going on.
Yeah.
That isn't always the case.
That type of information, we don't get all the stuff from the school, and I think that's one of the reasons we need to coordinate with them. The other instance normally John does call me with, and I do oftentimes forward them on to the mayor. If every counselor wants that, I can do that. You just have to, you know, what would be your preferred method? I know, for me, I actually prefer text, because I don't always check my emails, and I got like 5 email. You know, I teach at a college, I get their email, so the college actually texts me. So, you know, I think, you know, it would be helpful if I knew which form of communication, you know, and then if you get too much, you can easily just tell me, you know, cut back on it, but scale back. But I mean, if you would think about it and tell me which way you would prefer to get the information. But
Yeah.
it's not in today's communication. It's easy, you know, to send out a text, an email. You know, on your phone, you can hit the text and email and send it out.
Thank you, Jack.
We don't get much. I can think of 2 the last couple of years. One was unfortunately an incident in the Berlin Turnpike at the hotel.
Yeah.
Which was, you know, critical.
It was that, and it was one other. There was a fire or something.
One other one, a fire, but
Okay, what's the protocols or something like that? Should we be using the town email for something like that? Because we all got personal phones or work phones or work emails, and I think, you know, just all should be the same.
Yeah.
And
The reason why that we gave you the town emails was so there was a separation between your personal and your town business. I would say that as long as you don't start a conversation, that you just get the notification, that you keep it, you know, you don't start saying, well, we're going to have a meeting and we're going to have to talk, you know, keep it just where you get notified, that it's not probably a bad
Just
way
acknowledge
of
it, say,
text,
okay, thanks.
just to text to the person, to the personal cell. But once you start having conversations back and forth, you can open up your phone to FOI.
I think for me, I would just prefer email if that's the question you're asking. I think it's the safest bet.
the town email.
Yes, please.
You know, the problem is, of course, unless you get, my phone bings, plings, dings, whenever you get an email, and usually it's Gap telling me I get another coupon, but you want to make sure that you look at it, because that's when you'll know if it's a town.
And I think the point is after, I mean, I never have asked any of them, I mean, if they're busy doing what they're doing, our you know, first responders, then do what you have to do and tell us later, you know, I mean, if it's that much of an emergency, tell us, but if you're fighting a fire, if you're handling an accident, if it's a school situation, you know, that's the last thing I want to, is worry about them telling me. I mean, they will get around to it, I'm sure, but if they're in the middle of something, you know, and I know, they have to be focused on what they're doing. But yeah, I think a little bit more notice, probably just brief, but I agree with you, we don't want a whole big conversation started, because just should be some brief information, and we'll get the follow-up later when it's over. But
And Jack's, I mean, if you tell Jack that you want the email, he can, when he gets the information from the police or whoever, he can, of course, forward that on to you, to all of you.
Yeah.
You know?
Doesn't seem like it would be too much of a burden because, you know, it looks like there's only been 3 or 4 incidents in the past year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I
goodness.
don't want to,
Thank goodness.
you know,
Just
bother.
jinx it.
I was just gonna say,
I
Alex,
hope
don't
not.
jinx us.
Yeah.
I hope not.
Very
God forbid, but, you know.
Most towns have 2 distribution lists for town officials. One for officials that would be asked to report to an emergency operations center, and the other for town council, board of ed, about general specific incidents that they should know about.
Maybe there's a municipal ways, you know, you just put it in there, we all get notifications, like the traffic. Just thinking out loud, just.
That was just your $1 million idea.
Yeah, exactly, just go on.
Yeah, right there, that's it right there. Okay, where are we still have council communications, anyone else?
That's it.
Amy, nothing, we're all good, okay, we'll close that portion, we'll just have just acceptance of minutes, we can have a motion to accept our February 20th
Okay, motion to accept the minutes from February 20th, 2018.
Second.
Thank you very much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Kate,
Now,
I was not here, so I did not vote.
one abstention.
Was here.
And if we can, we'll take a motion to move into executive session. We will invite in Attorney D'Onofrio and Denise Parsons.
Okay.
Thanks, Jack.
Make a motion
Thank you,
to move into executive session. Connecticut General State Statute, Section 1-206A, concerning the appointment, employment, performance, evaluation of a public employee, town manager search. Sorry.